Hey everyone, so this episode's gonna cover a range of topics that can become generally uncomfortable for people to talk about, right? We're gonna cover the spread between spirituality, faith, and religion. Now, the best way that I can explain this is they often get conflated as the same thing or similar, and there is a similarity between them. However, think of spirituality as the wide open sky. So it's this broad thing that's above you, that's higher than you, that is an enigma, it's the part of you that knows there's more. Purpose, what my meaning of life, where we come from. I don't know the reasons, I don't know what, so I don't pinpoint anything down to a specific dogma, but I know that there's more to this. Faith is the North Star. It's seeing something up there, believing it's there by choice alone. So let me be very clear on this. When I make the choice to be a good person versus a bad person, when I make the choice to not hurt someone else, not for fear of consequence, but because it's the right thing to do, that's a choice of faith. Because there's nothing outside that's forced me down that path other than my own choice to follow that line. And then religion is narrowing this down into a set of structured systems and requirements in order to follow said religion. Now, why is this important? Because we often talk about our three tenets, one being spirituality. And we have a range of people who are involved in religion. We have a lot of people who have a lot of faith, and everybody carries a sense of spirituality, but not everybody shares the religious aspect. The idea being is that religion is a very specific subset of dogma, telling you that you will run down this road, and this path that we lead you down will, based on a set of rules designed by men, enacted through the men, through their faith, tells me that I must follow these lines in order to run a certain gauntlet, right? Which tells me that my path means is that I have to be baptized, I have to go to church on Sundays, there's certain requirements within the religion.
Let me read the definition of religion. A personal set or institutionalized system of religious attitudes, beliefs, and practices. The service and worship of God or the supernatural. A cause, principle, or system of beliefs held to with ardor and faith. I'll leave it there.
Yeah. And what the word dogma is a subset of religion because it means that you have to follow said system in order to be part of said religion. That doesn't account for faith. Now, why is this important when we're talking about the balance? Because there is some confusion with people, especially men, regarding faith and then the subset of religion. Why? Because if you follow a specific religion, especially, and I'm going to go into specifics of hardcore religions that have a specific line. The Catholic Church is one, right? The Muslim ideology, right? Islam is another one, which says if you don't follow this path exactly, the consequences is excommunication from the church, complete disqualification, you're going to hell. The consequences are so bad according to that dogma that you cannot question anything.
Isn't that most all religions, though?
To a degree. I'd say that a lot of Christian religions now, especially the ones that have seceded from the Catholic Church, right? A lot of those religions have a wide berth of belief. You know, so
I feel like we're seeing a massive trend of non-denominational churches popping up all over.
There is, because, and there's a danger in that too.
Yeah.
Right, because the danger of a organized specific religion is if you are not allowed the ability to question, discern, and make assessments or even ask a question. You know, Tucker Carlson says it's great, is when you simply ask a question and you are shut down, you're in the wrong place. Now, religion was that for me. Yeah, when I grew up,
me too.
I remember being a little kid. My parents sent me to church, and I remember asking a simple question. And I was told to shut up. You don't ask questions. And that didn't sit well with me. It didn't feel right.
What kind of church did you grow up in?
It was a Methodist church. So
Methodist.
not a really heavy church, right? It's not one of the older churches. It's reasonably Methodists are reasonably new. But the idea being is that if you question, you're wrong and you must shut up. Now, that is a very difficult line for a lot of us to cross. Even people who would claim and say, well, I'm super religious, I'm Christian, I go to church, I do all these things. But if you get them into a conversation where no one else is listening and you ask these questions, you'll start, all of a sudden they'll go, no, but I'm not sure about this. They start picking apart religion. Now, I don't want to have this episode be about picking apart religion, because I think there's an important aspect. If you don't have guidance in life and you're struggling to find your path, what a church can do for you is provide you a community of like-minded people, a set of moral standards, and a path to follow. When that path does no longer suit you, you may become higher than that path. And then you have to start questioning how that religion is actually serving you, which is fine. But it doesn't mean that religion's bad. It means you have to discern which religion you choose and how that indoctrination affects your personal and free choices of just simply questioning or seeing what else is out there. Because you have to look at every aspect. You've got an interesting story whereby you went for hypnosis in LP, right? And in doing that, you had people that were close to you asking you, is this supernatural? Is this something bad? Because the religion states that anything outside the religion is bad. Yeah. Right? We had me and Kevin had a discussion a couple of weeks back where we were talking about a young couple going to therapy with their pastor or their priest, and we were kind of looking at each other going, well, what truly does he know about marriage on the forefront? If he's a priest, he can't get married, so he's got no idea. So it's all going to be in doctrine text that he's going to get, right? And there's a place for that, but I think you also have to elevate yourself, which is what we're trying to do, to question, is it serving me in my faith?
I think one of the reasons that a lot of pastors think that they're qualified to marriage counsel, if you will, is because, the Bible, there's a lot of stuff in the Bible about marriage and whatnot, and pastors are biblical scholars.
Yes.
So I think in their minds, they feel like they're qualified for that. However, I take the position that to counsel someone who's going through, like when we talk, like I'll use myself as the example. The things that I faced and was going through, the struggles that I experienced, that like for me to overcome it and evolve past those things, needed a trained professional.
Yes.
It needed someone that actually understood childhood traumas, life trauma, how it affects you as an adult. I'm not saying, well, let me just say it like this. For all the many years that I battled whatever was going on in between my ears, do you think I would show up every day and not pray about it and ask God for help on it?
Of course you would.
Of course I did. Every single day I asked for God for help, maybe. And I'm not saying he didn't help me. I don't think God works this way, but like I was given tools and resources if I opened my eyes to them. But the reality was I wasn't going to fix these things by just praying, just to go see a pastor. Yes. Like I did try.
Yeah.
I would see a pastor of our church years ago. And honestly, what this church did, and I give them a lot of credit for it, they met with me one time to counsel me, like just hear what was going on and say a prayer for me, but said, call this guy. Yeah. We'll pay for your first session.
You see, and there is again a great discernment, because again, it doesn't mean that religion is bad. At no way, shape, or form. I've said for years, if the United States can get back to a Christian standpoint,
agreed,
it would be a better country for it.
And I think Charlie Kirk was definitely doing that. And you see what happened on, I think it was this past Sunday when, how many millions? I think I saw like 100 million people at some point had tuned in and streamed.
To watch.
Or they counted 100 million streams, let's say it that way.
Yeah.
But there's definitely a place to have higher power and spirituality and faith.
Yes.
And again, I go back to what I've said for a long time. I believe in God. I have a faith. You know me and how I am with that. But I'm not a big proponent of religion, because I feel like religion And what I lived with was extreme authoritarian style religion that dictated everything that you said and did, the rules, everything that was placed upon you.
Yeah.
And they tried to control how you lived your every waking moment. And that's not faith.
No,
that's authority.
That's a box. That's a box that's created to control, which is, again,
it's self-serving.
It is self-serving. And I'm going to say this again, and I'm probably going to say it another 100 times on the podcast, is it doesn't mean your religion is bad. Kevin gave a good point now. I went to a pastor who provided me with a service and realized I needed more than he could provide and actually gave me an outlet to that. That, to me, is a good person.
Agreed.
Right, so forget the religion. That is a good human being.
Right.
And it's again about discernment, because religion is a man-made structure to try and construct our faith and our spirituality into something where we as human beings want to say we know.
Yeah.
Right. I find this the most fascinating part of the way human brains work. Right. So let's go over a completely different subject to come back to this.
Can we pause?
Okay, we're back. So let me explain it in these terms. So I love watching ancient history. Right. Even if it includes archaeology or, even guys who are going to dig up dinosaur bones, to me is the most fascinating thing.
Yeah.
What I always found fascinating with the whole process was when you used to watch this when you were a kid, they would tell you this is what this was. So this dinosaur looked like that. Mm-hmm. He sounded like this. That's how he moved. That's what he looked like. Now, as you get older, and again, without access to information, I learned that was a complete theoretical outline. The person who decided this wasn't doing it because he knew. He was doing it because he theorized. Mm-hmm. He decided based on his experience, what he had learned, and how he applied it to tell you that this is what it is. Mm-hmm. So, I always like using the analogy. There is not anybody who's digging up dinosaur bones or is in the field of ancient biology or, past systems or prehistoric animals who can prove to me definitively that a T-Rex didn't have a mullet at all.
Didn't have a mullet.
A mullet. Right. And you cannot prove me right, you cannot prove me wrong. Because hair does not survive the process. So, if I go to you and I imagine in my head that every single T-Rex had a mullet, there's not a person on this planet, right, in that field that can tell me I'm wrong or right. The same way as their field is based a lot on theoretical baselines. They take a lot of what we know today about animals, they try and pin it back to what they did back then, and it changes consistently, right? But the arrogance of how these guys decide this is what it is, and if you argue with them, they'll throw degrees at you and they'll throw books at you, and it's come into light recently with all of the guys. Graham Hancock's a great example. Graham Hancock is a journalist who has a very deep interest in ancient history. So what does he do? Now, this is a journalist. This is a person whose entire career is about defining the truth, the facts, and discerning them in a way to give you an objective standpoint. He's now gone and studied. He's probably read as many books, if not more, than any person who studied it. Doesn't have a degree in it, but he's one of the smartest persons on earth. Based on his research as a journalist and putting things together, he goes, the understanding of what they tell us our ancient history is versus what it is impossible. It does not compute. You cannot put those together. Because what happens is within the academia wants to tell you that because academia says it is and we say it's true, it must be true. And you must accept it as true. And we're going to put it in books so it is true. But it's not true. Religion's the same thing. Religion is a subset of an organization that has decided to discern through ancient writings, ancient history, information passed down in multiple different ways, to tell you that this is the book that you will follow, and we tell you it's the one you must follow. It's right. You don't know that. You don't know if the scripts that they have in there were correctly translated from Hebrew or whichever language it originally came from. You don't know if that information is there a nuance there that they've slightly missed, but they're going to tell you it's 100% correct, but you don't know that. The more you, in our modern age, that you go back and discern this information, the more you realize that the religion is a construct to drive people into a following system. Now, there's benefits to it. The benefit is you get everybody to follow a certain subset, you keep them in control, people do the right thing, you give them a end point which is really bad. If you don't do this, hell's down there. Oh no, I'm not going to do that. Right? But what it doesn't do is it doesn't discern that choice for themselves. A study was done, I think in 2001, where they went to a whole bunch of people who were churchgoers. Right? These are people in church. These are religious people going to church every single Sunday. And they asked them a simple question. If there was now this was anonymous, no one knew who they were. If there was no consequence for rape, you're not going to hell, you're not going to jail, nothing's going to happen to you, would you commit rape? 71% said yes. Now think about that. The only reason they're not doing it is because of the consequence to action, right? Or there's a consequence based on religious doctrine. But you haven't discerned for yourself that that's just wrong and you shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And that's where religion can go wrong, is because you want to have a population to discern for themselves. Because what's the danger? When a population cannot discern for themselves, and it's not just religion. Woke is a religion. It's a cult. It drives people into a certain way of thinking. And if you do not conform to their thinking, they're happy to shoot you, as we've just seen. They're happy to dig you into a hole. They're happy to throw you to the wolves, because their purpose of their religion or their cult has told them it's okay. They're on the right side because they've been told they are. And that's the scary part about when you talk about religions, cults, or any organization that runs you a certain way. They're telling you it's okay because we said it's okay. Deep down inside you, you go, but this doesn't feel right. But there's people who are lost, who haven't found their faith or their spirituality, who are very easily driven down these paths. So for me, it's very important to discern the difference between religion, faith, and spirituality, and try and give people, especially within our group.
What is the difference between faith and spirituality?
Spirituality is a broad term, right? So I'm spiritual. I believe in something higher, right? I believe there's something out there. I don't know what it is, but it's very broad, right? It could be, you could experience spirituality while meditating. You could experience spirituality while closing your eyes. It's that feeling inside that there's just more. Faith is when you believe there's more, and you believe it based on choice. I'm choosing to believe that I should not hurt another human being for the pure simple reason that when I do, it doesn't feel right. So it's a feeling, but it's a feeling that's so strong that it paths you down a moral compass. And that's faith, because you believe it. No one's forcing you. It's very similar to discipline. No one's making you do it. No one's telling you to do it. There's nothing that's forcing you down that road. You're choosing it simply because something deep inside you tells you it's there and it's right, and I should follow that path. That's faith. It's blind. It doesn't lead it gets confused with many other things, but it's truly what it is. It's that feeling deep down when you see something's wrong and you have to step in, not because your ego has to do it, not because there's a reward at the end, but purely because it's the right thing to do. We spoke about it before. It's the cart analogy, right? The cart theory. I go to the store, I see a cart, I take it back. I don't have to. There's no choice. Why do I? Why do I take it back? Because something deep down inside me tells me it's the right thing to do, not just for me, but for everyone else around me. And something's telling me this is the right thing to do. That's a faith base, because there's nothing forcing me to do it. There's no reward. Yeah. There's no consequence. There's simply a choice. That's what faith is. Faith is making those choices based on nothing more than a feeling inside you that tells you it's the right path.
I'm thinking about, so like the religion aspect of things, and I believe, like I have a heavy faith in God. Like I truly believe in God. I believe in a heaven and a hell. I grew up with extreme religion, so I'm not a fan of religion. And I grew up in an environment where like it was like overload with religion. It was, church Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. I was in a private school that was the same church organization from Monday through Friday. They had chapel services that, I think if memory serves me, it was every day. They had Saturday morning youth groups where you'd go out and witness the gospel, if you will. And I'm not saying I was forced to do it all, but I didn't really have a choice.
When you're a kid, it's kind of...
I didn't really have a choice.
What happens, right?
Yeah, I didn't really have a choice on any of that. So, anyway, what I believe has happened, with religion is that, at least my experience with it, was where you were taught all these things because they said they wanted you to have faith, have a faith in God, and believe that He's your Lord and Savior. And I agree with salvation, the aspect of stuff, and faith. But what I don't agree with is that there's an episode that Sean Ryan just did recently with a guy, I can't even remember his name, where he talks about church extensively. And basically one of the takeaways I remember on that episode, and it was something I've always known to be true, and I've said this about the world in general, everyone likes to say that there's a lot of people and organizations out there that try to say that it's not about the money, right? Let's use a nonprofit, for example. Like, I know of one, it's a nonprofit that benefits children, and the person that runs that nonprofit is constantly, it's not about the money. I don't do this for the money. I do this for the kids.
Yeah.
But can you donate to my cause?
Yes.
Right?
While pulling a massive salary.
Probably. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really know the details of their situation. But yeah, most likely a majority of the donations go to that person's salary. So, again, my point is, like, even in those nonprofit situations, they can sit there and say all they want. It's not about the money. It's about the cause. Oh, well, that's bullshit. It's about the money, because without the money, you can't do your cause or your passion. So it's always about the money. Let's be real. And so back to the church scenario, a lot of these churches out there, especially the mega ones, and I grew up in a mega church, they're a corporation.
100%.
And
if I would go as far as to say is that any religious aspect from a cult, there's the saying that the difference between a religion and a cult is time and the death of the person who started it. Literally, that's it. There's no other difference.
Yeah.
The mindset's exactly the same.
Yeah. But, like, okay, so if we establish this, right, that a church is a corporation, it's a business. And we just had in our networking group a guy that came in and who's a pastor of a church, and I've heard him say, he didn't say it this last time he was in, but at a previous training, I heard him say, when I stopped looking at my place as a church and looked at it like a business, I was able to benefit. And I know there's a lot more to what he had to say, but the point is, I think what happens with a lot of these churches that, are religions, they've crossed over to this place, and these mega ones especially, and that whole episode of Sean Ryan really breaks it down pretty nicely. So I'm not going to, try to go into that, but, I think what's happened is there's a lot of people that become, I hate to say the word victim, but become victims of the religion. And they become confused in life, and they become confused of the world, and they don't necessarily understand. They believe in God, and I experienced this. Like, when I would step foot into a different church, to something that wasn't the same thing that I grew up with, even though I didn't like the church that I grew up in and the way I grew up, I felt it was wrong to go into a different church. And I was like, so I struggled with it.
Yeah.
And, until recently, I've come to a better place when it comes to church and understanding what it needs to be and look like for my personal self. But I think that's what a lot of human beings are struggling with in today's world, is they want to break free from the shackles of a religion, and actually have a faith. And what does that actually mean to people? And that's kind of why I asked what you thought the difference between faith and spirituality is, because I think, here's what none of us on this earth know what's actually going to happen when we die.
No.
We like to believe it. We like to have the faith, and I think that it's important, that we have a faith. And in my case, a belief in God. But in the end, this is where my mom would get frustrated with me. I would challenge the status quo. I would ask those questions every time. Like you mentioned about getting shut down when you would ask those questions. I would too. In the church setting, I did get shut down on those questions. I got asked. That's why I got in a lot of trouble as a kid. But at home, I would at least give my mother credit. My parents would listen to my questions, and they would always try to answer it biblically. But I would ask those questions. I'm not saying I believe this, but what if when we die, that's just it? There's nothing else.
And these are fair
we
questions.
Don't know.
But the questions you're asking, to me, is part of the natural progression to find faith. And if you get shut down too far in those, you're going to get stuck into a hate for religion, and by definition, a hate for faith or anything that's aligned to that.
Well, my opinion, and this is government-driven, government, they don't want us to be free-thinking people. In reality of freedom, in my opinion, there is a level of control that they want in the world today. In general, whether that's a church, whether it's a government entity, a free thinking population is a dangerous population.
Yeah, but let's break this down into even simpler. And you're right in everything you're saying, but it's not a government or a church thing. It's a human thing. Why? Because if I'm the leader, a tribal leader of a small village in Africa, right, and I have 50 followers, by leading those 50 followers, I have the admiration of a leader, right? I have people listening to me, which gives me a sense of power. Mm-hmm. There's keyword power, right? And that's key sense of power. Also with that comes in the responsibility to make sure that everybody's okay. Also comes in the responsibility of putting in and dictating things that allows everybody to live within harmony. Now, government, religion, all of these things at some point in history, even today, especially with government, sits with this plan, right? So in one sense, they have the responsibility of keeping a just society that is operational, that is consistently working within its boundaries, and is consistently supporting the population that's there, right? So it's not an easy job. If you've ever done anything in leadership, it's not easy. No. A business would do the same thing. I want my employees to come to work. I don't want them to question what they have to do. I want them to do the job. I want them to get paid. I want them to go home. And if I can pay them less, I want. As much as any business owner here, I've met very few business owners that doesn't want to pay less.
Well, let me tell you this. Agreed completely. I see the world like this too, where let's think about this. And I'm not saying this is the wrong thing to do, but let's just use any example of a business that starts, right? And they grow their company to a certain size, whatever the case. What is one of the worst things that businesses deal with? Turnover. So how do they combat that? They create an environment and a culture where people don't want to leave.
Yes.
Right? And who says that that's wrong? I don't think it's wrong at all.
It's standard human practice.
It is. It's standard, and that's any organization. And I've experienced
it's any human being.
It is. And I've experienced this. And so that was one of my things that kind of gave me some epiphanies in my lifetime, to where I went back to my time playing sports. I went back to my time in the church world. I went back to my time in the corporate settings, the military, all that stuff. And I heard a very consistent theme in each of these organizations. Mm-hmm. I'll use my corporate job. In my corporate job, they'd start every meeting with, tell us your name, tell us the location that you came from, because they had over 400 locations with this corporation, and then tell us how long you've been with the company. Yeah. And what they're doing subconsciously there is creating an internal competition
between everyone else
to be the longest tenured person in the room.
Yes.
And it's actually kind of genius. It's a good thing that they were trying to do, but it was ultimately a way to show like longevity within the company and the employees, and that we're a good place to work.
Yeah.
But what they're also and this happened in the military, I would hear in the corporate setting, you'd hear this. In my government jobs, I heard this, and then in the military, I heard this variation. But basically, where else are you going to go? Mm-hmm. We pay very fair wages, if not above average. There's no jobs out there that compare to ours.
Yeah,
that's what they would share with you. Or, in the military stakes, they would say, "Well, you're just going to get out, and you're just going to fall flat on your face because you don't have a plan or whatever." Mm-hmm.
We're the solution to everything.
Correct, right? Okay. And so, if you think about that theme, what are they all doing? They create the culture to keep you there.
Okay.
And so they create fear for you to go try something new and to do something 100%. Different. And so I paid attention to all these themes over my life and realized that I do beat to a little bit of a different drum, because I asked the questions. Well, why do you see it that way? Mm-hmm. I was objective to things. I would step outside my box or my lens and look at it from an outside viewpoint. And I knew it was true that I could go do something else.
100%.
And I could be successful in other things.
But again, it's a human nature. You've got kids, right? Do you command your kids with authority?
In what regard?
As a father figure. So how do you control your household? They know when dad says no, it means no, or when mom says no, it means no.
Sometimes.
Right? Sometimes, fair enough. But that's what I'm getting down to, is human nature on two senses. The one is we are indebted consistently to try and control our environment. When you're placed into a point of leadership, right? First leadership that you're going to probably experience in life, right? And I'm talking about high-level responsibilities when you have kids, right? Because kids, you have to feed them, you have to clothe them, you have to get them ready for society. It's a massive responsibility, right? Mm-hmm. Now, I would argue that all parents have a semblance of mass control over those children because they're trying to control an outcome, which is fair. And I'm not I'm just pointing out that it is human nature. It is in the most basic things we do, like raising children.
Yeah, well, they're authority figure.
Right, you're an authority figure, and the authority figure stands high. Those can get corrupted, as in families. You can have abusive parents who overstep their authority, like governments, like corporations, like churches.
Yeah.
You also have really good parents that are lax, right, and that don't put any authority in, and kids run amok and become, less aberrant to being good members of society, which can happen as well. And then you've got the middle ground between those two, where you have to kind of consistently balance. Now, with that said, that goes from the most simplest point of human nature.
Can I just say, and I'm aware of things, so some of it's even close to home, but I think it's really easy for a parent to be an authoritarian.
Absolutely, it's our default setting.
It is, and I think that's where I'll use myself here for a moment to say, my greatest fear. It's not my greatest fear, but it's a great fear of mine that my children will one day do what I did to my parents.
Yeah.
Where when I left home at 18, I never looked back. And my to break it down, it's not I love my parents. I have a good relationship with them. And this is an epiphany I've had over the past few years. This isn't something I was doing. I didn't, at 18 years old, say, screw my parents, I'm out. It just happened this way because of life circumstances and what I was chasing. But my whole point is, it's really easy for parents to be an authoritarian because we have a responsibility, right? And so it gets to our head almost well, it's not that it gets to your head, it's just you're trying to raise a good human being, right?
And even if you...
And so you're putting rules and standards in place.
You are.
And you're also trying to enforce that. So sometimes it's just easy to go to that place of I'm always disciplining.
Because it's the easiest route to get... Because, again, that's our default setting. As human beings, right? The easiest way... and it's what I'm going to say sounds horrible. The easiest, and I would say to a point, the most cowardly way to push your authority on anyone else is physical violence. Right? It has dominated our society and our human nature for thousands, hundreds of thousands of years. Right? So,
which is what's so sad about Charlie Kirk being killed, because he tried to not do that.
And try to not do that, right? So it's the easiest default. It's our default method, right? Because I've got the bigger stick, I've got the bigger body, I've got the authority, I will push it down upon you. The other road, right, which is the road that a lot of parents today are trying to go down, right, you're included, and we're trying to go down the road where we're trying to instill a sense of understanding of why, consequence to action that not necessarily means a belt, right? And it's a very complicated thing, because human beings are not simple. We're complex monkeys running around. It's not a simple thing, right? So,
did you get spanked growing up?
Yes.
I got,
and yet, to be honest, right?
I got beat.
I didn't get beaten up. Mine was more the fear of getting beaten up. My mom took a slipper to me a couple of times. My dad threatened to beat my ass once. The threat was enough to just never had to do it again. Right?
Man, I had to be beat. My dad had a board that he used, and then he had a leather belt that he would use. I was just a fun-loving kid that liked to get in trouble. I just did, and so I got spanked a lot growing up. And I don't hold them. My whole reason to even bring that up is that was the old school way, right? That's the way they did things.
There's an argument, not necessarily.
And in today's world, I've spanked my kids, not often. I don't need to, because to your point, that's the
you're trying a different path.
I am trying a different path, and am I saying is that an easy way to instill fear? I don't want to instill fear. I want them to redirect their behavior. Okay, so hear what I said there. I want to redirect their behavior. Well, there's other ways to do that.
Are they easy?
As far as using other methods?
Yeah, they're hard, right?
Well, I think it depends on your approach.
Well, let me rephrase the question. It's easier to pick up a belt and beat your child than it is to take... No. Understand what I'm saying? What I'm saying is I'm just talking in generalized, not for you specifically. So, in general, it's easy to go, stop it.
Yeah.
Versus taking 5 steps back, controlling your own emotions, as you say, looking at how they're acting, taking the time to redirect, that takes more effort.
Well, and I'm going to give a tip for parents, and I learned this from coaching, and I think we shared this in last week's group. I've taught a lot. I've trained a lot of kids in baseball, all right, and young kids. The youngest I've worked with is probably about 8, but if you have a team full of 9 and 10-year-olds on a baseball field, their attention spans are very short, and they get distracted really easily. And so I use push-ups and sit-ups as a way to redirect attention, because that's the key. It's redirect. I'm not saying I'm a child expert. I'm not.
You're just giving your perspective what worked.
But what I have found is that redirecting attention quickly makes a difference. And so I'll do this at home with kids. Like with the kids, I'll be like, all right, Brandon gets frustrated with schoolwork pretty easily. He doesn't like school. He's like me. And he gets a little overwhelmed by what he's got to do, and he wants to immediately resort to tears. And I'll just say, hey, do 5 push-ups. So he does 5 push-ups, and he gets right back up. All right, try it again. And so it's just literally to change his focus for just a second.
Yeah.
And then get back to it, right? I use the same with punishment. Like if they're not listening, I'll be honest. Like I'll have them put their nose on the wall. That's an old school punishment. I know the county apparently doesn't like that in the schools, because I've tried to tell the daycare, just put their nose in the corner. That'd be fine. But like to me, it was just a matter of stopping what they're doing, put their nose in the corner, or go do squats. Like you guys want to be mean to each other, go do some squats, and just redirect attention. And then I have a conversation with them. Like, all right, Reagan, you hit your brother in the face. Why did you do that? Do you think that's a good idea? Would you want him to hit you in the face? And have a conversation with him.
And pointing out how would you feel if that happened to you?
Yeah.
What's the consequence to action? The consequence in this particular point is I'm redirecting it to see that you can feel his pain and how that would affect you.
Well, and I've also noticed with parenting, like kids have a tendency to not want to tell you something because they fear that they're going to get in trouble. Right. Yeah. So one of the things I've learned to just have a conversation with them to say, like the other day at school, Brandon, he got into a little skirmish. And they were playing ball. He hits a ball over the fence. The other kid gets mad at him for doing it and starts like really just bantering for it. So Brandon walks up to him and punches him. I don't agree with him doing that, right? Well, then the kid takes a racket, or a bat that he had, and he hits Brandon with the bat. Brandon gets mad about it, punches him in the face. Skirmish is over. Kid's crying, whatever. So I bring it up to him, and he lies to me initially, saying he didn't hit the kid. And I said, dude, you're not in trouble right now. Like, I just want to know what happened. Explain to me the situation. And so instead of you're grounded, whatever else, or punishing the kid, I just said, well, here's what I don't like about that whole thing. That little boy made you mad, and so you decided to just go hit him first because he made you mad over something. Like, I don't agree with that. I don't think that's a good idea. So we had a conversation, and I helped him understand things, and I think that this whole thing, this whole topic, this whole episode in general, and I think that's, again, going back to, the whole Charlie Kirk stuff, it's understanding each other, having open dialogue, having communication, whether you're a parent with your kids. And I'm aware of a situation there, which is really sad to me, that a now adult child of someone is afraid to speak to their parents about something.
Yeah. And and again, there's no simple solution for any of this. Human beings are complex, right? We're very interpersonal. There's a lot of societal changes and things are changing. And it rings back to the one sense is we want to control. That is our default setting.
Yeah, that's right.
The other sense is we're always looking for our higher purpose. Those are the two parts of us that are conflicting, right? Yeah. And, we've spoken before, and we spoke in our group last week about how anger is it's a default setting that is tied into weakness. Psychology says that anger is a subset of a multitude of different emotions, right? So it ranges from these emotions which lead you to anger, and anger becomes the default setting because it's the easiest one to just fall into. It's easy to become angry. It's easy to be upset at the world. It's easy to blame someone else. We talk about this all the time. It's easy not to take accountability. It's easy to throw it away from yourself, right? And how does this tie back into your spirituality, your faith, and your religion? Religion is a good subset to guide you towards finding your avenues of faith and spirituality, right? But it should not be taken lightly. It should be taken with the idea, and you should be open to questioning it. You should ask, why don't I kill? Is it because God's going to send me to hell? No, because it's wrong.
Yeah,
you should try and get a very deep psychological understanding of that's just not what it doesn't feel. It's not what we should be doing, right? And that then goes for lying, anything you do in life. Now, if you can, at some point, if you start engaging in that, you're going to start getting above your religion, because you're going to realize that religion is a box, right? Which can serve very well. But once you outgrow that box, they're going to try and keep pulling you back in. The point here is discernment for human beings, where it becomes very important, is making choices about being a good human being in love and kindness. That, and having faith that I'm not responsible for anything else around me, anyone else around me. I can't change how other people see the world, act. What I can do is I can enact the vision I want to see in the world by faith alone, and that faith is driven by my actions. How do I live?
I totally agree. Something that's really important to me that I have the platform for is I had this conversation with my dad recently. I think a lot of people in the religion world, and I've heard it firsthand, say, basically everything that happens in their life is because of God. And I had this conversation with my dad. My dad's a very wise man. Like I'm very grateful for his wisdom and how much he's even evolved. And I going through my own healing journey has helped him. And anyway, one of the things he said to me, he's like, it's not like God's standing around with a bunch of puppet strings on his fingers, like moving the play around, like where it's supposed to go and what it's supposed to do. Like we have free will, we have choice, And I think like ultimately what you're getting, like what you just said, like I'm not a good person because God made me a good person. I'm a good person because I chose to be a good person.
It's a whole choice.
It's a choice. It's truly a choice to live and be better. It's, one of the things that bothers me, like in the religion that I grew up with, was like it was almost like they wanted you to be poor, and like they, you'd hear the expression of like, money doesn't buy happiness, right? And so you would hear those things, and I'm like, I think they got it all wrong. And as I've evolved and grown in my life, I've realized like, no, I don't think God wants us to be poor, at all. Like we do need abundance, right? And like I just, you said it with religion, it's a box, and in reality is like, in my opinion, a lot of the religious authorities have a tendency to want to be the pulpit master or the puppet master. They truly do want to almost orchestrate and have you living to their rules and authority. And I don't think that's the way God intended it. It wasn't designed to be that.
Which is true, but I don't think it's always the intention that's.
I'm not saying that they do it on purpose.
No, but you have to discern that there are aspects of religion and religious churches and institutions that are driven by hate and that are driven by things that are not conducive to the text of the religion at all.
Yeah, but I think that sometimes, like culturally, people, generation over generation, that's how they were raised, and they believe that that's what's supposed to be, and that's how it's supposed to be, and anybody else has got it wrong. And I just never understood that, because that was kind of what I perceived in my environment that I grew up with, is that everyone else was wrong. And I remember specifically, like, there were families that we knew that were wonderful human beings and people, but because they went to a different church and had a different religion than us, I was supposed to believe that they were going to, face eternal damnation because they didn't see eye to eye with our beliefs. But
again, that's a subset of control, right? It's also a subset of following a doctrine of writing, right? Let's break down. So the King James Bible, right, is a transcript. There's many different variations of the Bible where the interpretation of the original Hebrew text is slightly different. Right, great. But in the end, you're interpreting a person who had a spiritual, faithful event, right?
Yeah.
And was trying to interpret his understanding of it 2,000 years ago.
Right.
So now, so a goat herder from 10 BC has a very profoundly spiritual experience, right? He has no knowledge that we have now.
Right.
He's a goat herder, right? He gets up in the morning, herds his goats, he has to go fetch water, he has to make his own food. His life is nothing that we can comprehend today.
Right.
Right. Apart from maybe a few places on earth. This person has an exceptional religious experience, right? Faithful experience, a spirituality experience, whichever you want to call it. Maybe he took mushrooms. I don't know, right? I don't have the answer. But now he decided to take that experience and he tried to put it down into text. Okay. Does it make it any less profound? No. But it's an interpretation of a human being telling you what they experienced. And his interpretation, maybe he saw an alien. I don't know. My point I'm making is none of those things actually matter because it's an interpretation.
Absolutely.
When you try and the Bible says these words or this religion says these words, thus they mean this. You don't know that. What you're doing, you're interpreting.
I'll give you an exact example. And you know where I grew up. I grew up outside of Chicago, and the winters up there are harsh. They're very harsh. There's extreme negative temperatures. There's, ice and snow and whatever else. And they made women in their religion, they still are this way today, they made them wear dresses. They could not wear pants. And they said it was due to biblical reasons, that in the Bible it says that thou shalt not wear that which pertains to a man. I believe that's how the script goes. And in the Middle East, the men wear robes, aka dresses.
They also don't shave. They also send their wives away when they have a period. They don't eat shellfish. They don't have tattoos. They don't desecrate their body. Like, there's so many different levels.
Which, agreed. But my point is this. Like, with that religion that I grew up with, is, again, this is your interpretation.
Yeah.
Who says it's right?
And you're also picking and choosing the interpretation that serves you best within your control of human beings.
And so here, like, some advice from a guy who's overcome a lot of that is, I think it's diving into the root causes of yourself, and learning your childhood, learning why you're, like, I can tell you why my family raised me in the church that they did. I can tell you exactly why. Does it make it right? It's not for me to decide, but that's what they did and what they felt best. But my mother grew up in a very impoverished, tough situation. Her escape was the bus that came around and took her to church. So when she went to church, it was her safe space, and she felt really good. And because of that, she leaned into church heavily and went as much as she could because it got her out of her environment. It was her safe space. Okay. Well, guess what she did?
She tried to make that safe space for her family.
Correct. And does that make it right? Does it make it wrong?
It just doesn't matter. That's
what she chose.
And that's the key. It doesn't matter.
That's right.
She
did the best she could with what she knew.
100%.
And that's how I see both my parents. I don't blame them for anything. It's been healing, with the journey that I've been on. And there's things that I do and the way I live my life that they don't agree with, but quite honestly, don't matter to me.
You're the one.
It's my life.
You're the only one who has to bear that and decide how you bear that. So, how I like to have these conversations with people, right? Religious, not religious, spiritual, atheist, doesn't really matter, right? Is deep inside of you, deep inside your gut, you can feel something's drawing you. Always. Everyone has that feeling. Something's drawing me. Like, there's got to be more to this. There's got to be more to life. There's got to be more to this. Right. Part of that is the drive to just continue living, continue being. But part of that is also the ideal that we are here for a purpose. We don't know what that is. And I can't box the feeling I have when I talk about spirituality and faith. Thus, when I talk to someone who may be following a specific religious line, I have no problem with it. I think it's good as long as your religious line is in love and kindness and doesn't try to force anything on anyone else.
Right.
And I have no problem if you defend yourself. That's also fine, but it cannot force on anyone else. With that also said, I believe the concept of consciousness, universe, God, higher beings, I don't care what you call it, multiple universes. You can go into 1,000 different ways people want to explain this, right? It is so big that I don't think any human being on earth has any understanding of how big it is. We have a feeling, we feel it. Yeah. There's a feeling, we drive towards it, and we should try and embrace that feeling and bring it back down to ourselves.
Yeah.
And as we always say is, how do I do that? I'm in the present. And everything I try and do in my life, I try and do in love and kindness. I try and make sure that I'm exuding. When I watch the world around me and I'm like, that's bad and that's bad, I don't do that anymore. I look at it, I take it for what it is. I don't condone bad actions, right? But I can't change some of them either. I can't.
Yeah.
So what can I do is I can only live my day-to-day life in love and kindness to be the best version and hope but what I'm living and what I'm exuding may catch on, and other people like our community and like what we're doing catches to other people and they go, you know what, that's a good way to live, that's a good way to think. That's what I think is important.
Agreed. I used to say to my kids that I coached all the time, like, what's the two things that you can always control? Your attitude and your effort. And it sounds a little cliche, but in the reality of the world we live in, there's so many variables out there. There's so many things outside of our control. But I can control me and my efforts and my attitude. I can spread joy, I can spread love, I can spread peace. Doesn't mean I don't need to be a capable human being. And I'm going to always want to choose peace as the route that we take.
Always.
But like, I also know that if I go to the store today, I can spread some kindness.
Yes.
You know, and I've said this to you, and I mean this. Like, you know, I'm a little not upset with myself, but like financial abundance is important to me because I have been in two situations within the past month or two to where I could have actually paid for the person's groceries in front of me, and I didn't do it, and I don't know why. You know, subconsciously there was a level. It was just because I was concerned financially, but like I want to be able to like spread that kind of love, right? And it's important to me that, you know, we just do like, even I could probably do something, and I don't go to a lot of restaurants, so it's hard for me to do this, but like just buy somebody's coffee that's behind me or something, or right in front of me, you know, do something like that. One thing I did do not that long ago was I saw a law enforcement officer. The kids wanted Chick-fil-A, so I went and picked him up some Chick-fil-A, and I saw the guy ordering, and he was like fumbling to get his wallet out. I happened to have my card handy, and I popped it on. That's the tap world that we live in, so I did that just because it was my way of spreading some kindness. Yeah. And, you know, and for what he's got is a tough job, and like to me, doing more of those things, like controlling my attitude and being, you know, a spreader of joy. It may not be on the mass level like Charlie Kirk level, but if we have millions of people that try to go out and spread that love and joy and kindness, we're going to make the world a better place.
Yeah. And then again, just be a good, loving, kind person. Yeah. Try and be that to everybody. That's it. If you can do good deeds, that's amazing, right? But it's as simple as just having a smile on your face, just having kindness towards others consistently, even when they're maybe not being kind to you, or they're maybe having a bad day. Yep. Seeing the perspective that they may not be in the same place you are. They may be on their own journey where they're trying to figure out their life and trying to have understanding. In that set is, and it's something we consistently teach within our group, is kindness is not weakness. It doesn't mean that you stand up for bullying. It doesn't mean that you stand back. You're always capable of defending yourself. You're always capable of standing in, but you only do that as a last resort. What you're trying to do is, as you said, you're trying to innate peace. Part of peace is spreading joy and love as much as you possibly can. And in order to do that, you have to live that on a day-to-day basis. Yeah. And this is what I'm really getting at when it comes to spirituality, faith, and religion. Religion is a great segue. It's a nice way to get you into a thought process, because I'm an advocator. I've listened to multiple religious texts. I've gone through the Bible. I've listened to the text. I've taken it in, because how can I sit and have an opinion of it if I actually haven't listened to it?
Yeah, right?
And I find there's a lot of an amazing abundance of amazing texts and quotes and statements that you find in the Bible that you can interpret in a way that can generally create a great life. Yeah. I'm also very well aware that you can take that same interpretation and you can start throwing it upon other people and and telling everybody how bad they are for not following it.
That's right.
It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
It can go either way. You have to choose how you want to. How do you want to apply it? So, if you're in religion, just ensure that you apply it in a way that's always in love and kindness.
Yeah.
You know, Jesus, I read this extensive breakdown of Jesus Christ, right? So, historically, there's no denying he existed, right? Which, for anybody who, you know, is against religion, there's no denying he existed. It's in Roman texts. Yeah. There's more evidence of the existence of Christ than there is of Genghis Khan.
100%.
Think about that. There's more evidence that Jesus Christ walked this earth than there is that Genghis Khan did.
Agreed.
Okay. But if you go to someone who doesn't follow religion, they go, no, Genghis Khan is a real guy, but Jesus I'm not sure of. No, trust me. How he's interpreted, right? Was he a prophet, as he stated in Muslim text, and now as he stated in Jewish text? Was he the son of God? Was he a human being who just lived in such spiritual abundance of love and kindness that he was able to perform miracles? I don't know. I also don't care. What I care is, what was his purpose? His purpose was love and kindness. Yeah. Living his life in love and kindness. Also, very important to me, he chose a hill he was willing to die on. Yeah. Which is another stance of where I often say to people, you need to choose something to follow. Because if you dive into, for instance, I've said this in our group. If you look at woke ideology, right, and I'm going to give a very simple example. If you're someone who advocates for trans rights or gay rights, right, which I have no problem for, you have rights, you're allowed to. But you're now going free Palestine. And you're willing to take that message and inflict damage on people in this country where there is no Palestine. But you won't get on a plane, go to Palestine and fight for them. Right. You, in other words, you don't actually have a moral stand. What you're doing is you're screaming at the top of your lungs for something you don't truly believe in on a hill you'll never die on.
Right.
That is cowardice.
It is.
Right. If you're so advocating for that, why aren't you fighting for them where it matters?
Yeah.
You're not, because you know what the truth is. You're doing it because it gives you a tap on your shoulder and someone online going, well done, look what you did, but it means nothing. Have some skin in the game. Mm-hmm. If you have a moral stance, and you will die for that stance, and even importantly, you'll live for it, that's what means something. You have to truly embody what you're saying, and don't choose something to follow because it's going to give you a pat on the back, or someone's going to tell you well done or good boy. That's bullshit. Choose something and inherit it for the fact that it's good, it's kind, and it makes you a better human being. That's the important part.
Yeah, I think that's well said. I'm not the smartest guy when it comes to what's going on with Palestine and all that stuff. I'm not real versed in that area.
None of us are.
Well,
we're not there.
I do. I guess my point of even like saying that is just like I look at everything from just a simple common sense approach, you know. And one of the struggles that I have in today's culture that we're living in is that it's almost like for the last decade, they've created this environment that we have to the left has tried to make us and force us to just accept everything that they stand for, and we can't push back. And I just think that's like we can't continue like that. It doesn't work.
They've done the greatest psyop.
They have. They truly have.
The second greatest, actually. The first one was the Catholic Church.
Yeah, fair. But like my point is like we do have to have a moral compass, and that's the one thing. Like this country was founded with a moral compass and belief in God, and we had a moral compass because our founders fled where it was going haywire, if you will, and so they created a pretty imperfect government, if you like a pretty great model
compared to any other government in the world.
It's by far, yeah, right. So, are we perfect as a country? No, but we've done a pretty good job. And the point I'm trying to make about everything is the door's not locked. Like we're not a perfect place, but like we do have to be able to come to an agreement with each other. You know, whether you're on the left side of the aisle or the right side of the aisle, like. We have to work together, and you can't resort to violence to try to solve problems because we saw what just happened 2 weeks ago. Like, you know, just a tragedy. A husband and a father was taken senselessly, you know, for an ideology, basically. And it's sad. You know, I'm still kind of in disbelief that occurred, but like, I just think that there's been such a giant psyops over the past 10 to 15 years in this country that it's almost, and I think it's coming to an end, thankfully.
Part of it,
I think it's partially coming to an end, but like to a point where we're like in the corporate setting, people were afraid to disagree. I mean, I lived that. Like I remember when some of the wokeness was happening in the company that I worked for, that was a very conservative, right-leaning company for its history, and they quote went woke, and they started counting the number of diverse hires that they had, and they had a DEI program get rolled out, and they pushed all these big things, and they were doing, you know, gay pride celebrations and whatever else.
And I still can't blame them for it because the government pushed it on them.
It was what they had to do.
It's what they had to do.
They stayed compliant, and you know, in the end, it's like I don't care who you sleep with.
No,
like why does that matter in the workplace? Like and there's like I get corporations need rules and they need things that you have to keep people and an organization from being too far off the path, but like it's called having a moral compass, you know. And like you said, it's you know, when it comes to faith, I feel it in myself, in my deep down inside, and like I know when something's wrong.
Yes,
I have a feeling when I know what's right and wrong. I don't need somebody to tell me that, but unfortunately, you know, some people I guess have, you know, decided they do need that, but I don't think you do. Like I think you know what you're doing is about to be wrong. You know what it takes to be a good person, to just be a good human being, and to want to be like and desire to want to be better. And you know, I've always prided myself on that. I've always been in pursuit of being great. doesn't mean I am. It just means it's my pursuit.
Yeah.
I know I'm perfect. I'm not perfect. I'm human.
Yeah.
But I want to be better every day. I want to build a good business. I want to build a good life for my family and my kids. I want to be a good father. I want to be a good husband. I'm pursuing that. And so I'm not accepting the place that I was. When things would go south or things were wrong, I figured out just through time and seeking being better. And I figured some stuff out. Yeah.
And I think as human beings, Jordan Peterson puts it very eloquently, like he does with everything else he says. And he states there is a portion of our population, 5%. He calls them they're nonviolent psychopaths. Right. And they've been around since the dawn of time. And what they do is they take something good, they take something whole, they take something amazing, and they twist it. And when I say anything, I mean it could be a workplace, it could be a family, it could be a government, it could be a societal direction we're going into, it could be a movement, it could be religion, it could be anything. What they do is, it's the people that will start wearing the same cap you wear, the same shirt, they dress the same as you, they talk the same as you, they enact everything you say. But when push comes to shove, they use the words and they slightly twist it in order to get a angle of violence or an angle of hate or an angle of we must do this to that one. And then because everybody's on the good train and everyone's on this is a good thing, they hear these people, and these people generally are really good at revving up crowds and gaining emotions. Unfortunately, it's people who take up positions of power, politics, and government, high corporations. Unfortunately, there is a big proportion of them that I would classify as that 5% of nonviolent psychopaths, right? Because those positions, they equate very here, they're chameleons, right? They don't really have a moral stance. They'll switch to whatever they want. Only thing they're really interested in is their own acquisition of power at any cost.
Truth.
And what they'll do is they will take something good, like a good religion, right? If you go read some of the bases of some cults, right? Cults, their baseline, what their doctrine is. Some of them have some really ingenious thought processes. Oh, yeah. But then some guy comes in and he kind of takes it over and he speaks in a certain way, and the next minute, you've got a bunch of guys down there in Texas and they're sitting on that side of the one, he's got all their wives in his room. Yep. And you've got to think, well, how did they get that? Because human beings, it's very easy when you have a good trajectory. So something's really good and then twist it. We're seeing it right now. And it was warned. Jordan Peterson warned the right of this a year ago. He said to them, be aware that you're going to start seeing the wolves in sheep's clothing come out. The guys that are wearing the MAGA hat but are spewing hate and all of a sudden going against, and you're going to be okay with it because he's wearing my hat. Be careful of those people, right? That's why I don't wear hats. It's why I don't conform to one, because things can get twisted really well. We talk about the feminist movement, equal rights for women. Amazing idea. Until it gets twisted, and now what you have is a disconnect between women and feminism.
What's blown my mind about the trans thing is that how the feminists have not been so up in arms about that.
Because
it's like all they fought, but all they fought for, right? The movement that they fought and women's equality and just all that, right? And overnight, they basically rolled over the trans movement and men being in female sports because the left basically ate them up if they didn't follow.
It goes deeper than that. The eating up and didn't follow
it's all complicated.
Is one thing. It's the complex part is what they did is it's the same as LGBTQ, lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, queer. Yeah. Right. The whole idea of this is now, again, just think of the logic. I'm putting in lesbian and gay. A man who's attracted to other men is now in trouble if he's not attracted to a woman who dresses like a man, but I'm not attracted to you, you're a woman. But they put it, why'd they do that? Because there was such a success in the gay and lesbian movement for their rights, which they 100% deserve. Let them live their lives. But what we do is we take good things, right? These good things, these things are important. No one wants to be called a racist. So what do these extreme people do? Well, you don't like being called a racist, so now if you just disagree, you're a racist, right? And your initial reaction, I don't want to be a racist. Oh my God, I'll just conform. I don't want to be a racist, right? But eventually, if you keep following that line, it just loses power.
But even that, and this might be controversial, but before Obama became president, I'm not saying it didn't exist, but I don't remember the discussions like this where there were so many like things happened. Like there were, racial things that would occur.
They always happen.
I don't remember a country being so pressed about being, racist. And under the Obama administration, it just seemed like it exploded. It just got way worse.
He gets blamed for this a lot, and I think there is some blame. You can see it in the data and the statistics. But more importantly is that's just the tip of the iceberg. One of Charlie Kirk's biggest left punch against it that they want to put in is he said the civil rights movement, well, in a short clip of a much larger context clip, he talks about the civil rights movement and how it was a mistake, right? And they'll just take that part of the clip. But what he was really saying is the civil rights movement initiated a process which formed in that we must start choosing people based on race and not equality or equality of character, right? So we're choosing you because you're black or you're white or you're this or you're that. And by doing that, he was giving a larger context, which they completely skew, which is why you always, again, have to go and look at the larger picture. Don't just follow one clip.
Well, and that bothers me to no end because I see people on social media, some that I actually know directly, that, will take certain things and it's like, not looking at the whole picture, but it's just like how do you as a human being to not, like if somebody's, like if I see a video of something nowadays and it's a short version of it and I go, man, that seems a little odd, or wow, that's an extreme take. And if I don't go seeking like the full video of it to actually have formulate an opinion, shame on me. I should absolutely understand the whole perspective of it.
You have the ability to discern information in a way right now that we have not had in any human history.
And I give that what's his name? Is it Van Jones? I forget his whole name, but I give him credit. I don't like anything he stands for, and he even claims to be a communist. But like what I give him credit for is that he actually came out with that text message that Charlie Kirk sent him about, like, hey, come on my show, let's have an actual debate about this. And he actually put that out there to share. And the whole thing is, like, no matter, as long as there's human population, we're going to have disagreeing opinions. We always will. But it's important that we sit and have dialogue about it, and that we understand a position that somebody's coming from, and then come to a reasonable conclusion together. Yeah, that to me is what is success.
I agree. In one sense, I agree 100%. But there's a danger in that, because what's happened the last 20 years is we'll have a dialogue, but if you question my dialogue and you start questioning why I have this dialogue and why I have this certain viewpoint or why I'm leaning down one, and you hit me with a logical rebuttal and I cannot answer it, I start screaming at you, or I talk over you, or I talk over everybody else. And then I start screaming, but your side did this and this side did that. And I never get to which has become almost the standalone when it comes to politics and even in debate. Because it doesn't help that we have open dialogue, but we're not actually open to the dialogue. Because what's happening is we had a left-leaning commentator who's just been banned off stream. His name is Destiny. I don't know what the guy's name is. And this guy, he's an abhorrent human being, right? What he stands for, you can see there's no logic in it. He hates the world, he hates people, and he just wants to. He's that 5% of nonviolent psychopaths, right? And he claims to debate, but he doesn't debate. What he does is he states a point, and then when you try and go to that point, he literally just stands and just screams the same thing over and over and over again. So he's not open to dialogue, right? The problem is we need to go further than just dialogue. It can't just be dialogue. People have to shut up and actually listen to what's being said.
That's the problem.
And unless you can give an actual rebuttal that has points and facts, not points and facts that lean towards you. Politicians do it the whole time, right? We've seen it now consistently with the Trump administration, the last two administrations he's had. We've seen it with the Biden administration. It's just become this shit throwing event whereby instead of dealing and listening to where people are coming from and trying to find common ground, what we do is we stand our ground, we scream at you, you scream at me, I'm right, you're wrong. I'm right because I'm going to take this sliver of information and data and I'm going to throw it at you, and you're going to take this sliver and throw it back at me. But no one ever discerns the information and says, you know what, let's talk. And at some point, if we as the good men in society want to get past this, we have to learn to walk away from the conversations where that happens, and we have to stand our ground and do things like this. You know, you want to find good information. Podcasts are amazing, and I I listen to as much as I possibly can. I don't care what your viewpoint is. I don't care. I'll go and find a Satanist. I found a Satanist podcast the other day. Right. Why? I want to hear what you have to say. I don't have to agree with you.
I know.
But I'm going to sit down and I'm going to listen to you for that hour, and I'm going to see, and it may not take an hour. I might go into 10 minutes and go, okay, this is just not feeling right. But
I can't feel
I'm willing to hear what you have to say and see if there's discernment. I don't have to agree with you. I won't agree with you. I don't, but I'll listen to what you have to say. So I try very consciously to listen to as many different viewpoints and get to a point where, okay, sometimes, regardless of the side, I'll hear a point of what they're saying. Go, okay, I can see why you would believe that in that route.
Yeah.
But realistically, that's maybe 5% of the time to 10% of the time. 90% of the time, it is this head-butting factor whereby I'm going to scream over you, you're going to scream over me. I'm going to throw you with antiquated analytical data that's been positioned for something that benefits me, or I'm going to throw you with an AI picture that's been altered, or I'm going to get ahead of you by saying something that's not true and then trying to tell as many people as possible so that they follow me. It's become a shit show. And I think, again, going back to being in the present, we cannot control this, right? This is how external. However, what can I control? I can control what I do. What do I do? I try and talk to everybody in love and kindness. I don't try and judge them. If they have something to say, I let them finish. I go through the process. I want to hear what you have to say. I'll go as far as to say is that we've had people on this podcast that live lifestyles that I will never live, but I'm interested to hear your viewpoint. Now, I've never gone to the extreme of saying, because I don't want it to be that type of podcast, but I will listen to what you have to say. But if at any point in this conversation we can't have a cordial, honest conversation and actually sit down for at least a minute and go, I'm trying to figure out exactly what you mean. Can you be a little bit more detailed in that? What do you mean by that? What's the context of it? Is there more to it? But it's very rare to find these conversations. The only place I truly find them is on podcasts, right? And I was listening to Bill Maher the other night, and he had an interesting. He had Tom Holman on. Right now, he doesn't have an easy job.
Bill Maher or Tom Holman?
Right, Tom Holman.
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
And he doesn't have an easy job. I mean, this is the guy who's literally trying to sort out what the Biden administration did with illegal immigrants. Yeah. I'm an immigrant here, right? I have no fear of ICE because I know what I've done. I know where I am. Does that mean that I may get picked up by an ICE agent and detained? Yeah, he might detain me for a couple of minutes while he checks my stuff out. I'm okay with it. That's his job. I'm happy. What do you need me to comply?
Yeah.
I'm nothing to hide. Let's go through it, right? He doesn't have an easy job. And I honestly, I've looked at it from every angle. I can't think of another way that he could have done his job. Yeah. I don't. I listen to what he says. And what I found very interesting with Bill Maher is he talks to Tom Holman and he says, you know what, I've invited the Clintons, Kamala Harris when she was running, all sorts of politicians on the left from the Democratic Party. They just never come. The only people who are willing to come to the show to talk to me are Republicans.
Yeah.
Right. Now, I'm not Republican or Democrat.
Which is crazy because Bill Maher's far left.
He's not. Bill Maher
he's old school far left.
He's old school. He's just old school left.
He is old.
He's
school
just
left.
Right now. He's according to them. He's a right wing nutbag.
The left is now calling him Bill Maher.
Yeah, Bill Maher. He's now right wing. Right now, imagine the craziness of that. Because Bill Maher, I don't agree with every take he takes, but I always find him to be discerning and he listens. Right.
Yeah, and there's he had Charlie Kirk on, and that was an interesting interview.
That was a very good episode.
It was, and the thing with Bill Maher, I don't agree with a lot of them, but I give him a ton of credit because in the end, he does not agree with what's happening in the world today.
But he's willing to have a conversation, and he doesn't judge.
Yeah, he's willing to discuss it.
I mean, they got him to go to the White House after everything he said about Donald Trump, and he sat down with him. He said, "I had the best dinner with him ever."
Right.
That's the type of dialogue we need. Right?
100%.
And the more we start engaging in that, and the more we're walking towards that, the more discernment we have.
I want to share a couple final thoughts about just the whole topic, with religion, faith, spirituality. And I, just as somebody who lived religion in the extreme way that I did, my heart goes out to people, and I know of a situation now that my heart goes out to people that feel stuck in a religion. And I would encourage you to push back on the narrative, to ask the questions, to not accept the answers that you get if you don't like them, and don't be afraid to seek out other means. And it'll take you some time, but digging deep into yourself and understanding who you are and why you are you can truly enjoy freedom in faith.
Yeah.
And it's out there.
It is. It's literally in you. It's not even out there. It's part of you. It's ingrained in your soul. It's ingrained in your psyche. It's ingrained in everything you are. My wife has a great saying, which she does hypnosis and NLP, and she's run her own groups, and she's had people ask her, "What should I follow?" And she had a simple algorithm. She said to them, "She go, if anything they say drives hate, hurt, or intolerance, stay away from it. If what you're doing drives love, acceptance, and being a better person while protecting your sovereignty and your independence as a human being and as a soul in this earth, then it's probably a good thing. And you should always question it. No matter what it is, always ask that question. Is this being done hatefully? Is it being done in a way that wants to hurt people, subjugate people, push things on people? Does it feel right? Is it being done in love and kindness? And then ask that question, how does it feel?
Well, my experience with religion is that I love what she says, but my experience with religion, at least the environment I came in, is that they did all those things and they made you feel that the other things were wrong.
Yeah, but here's the thing is, the fact that they made you feel like the other things are wrong,
there's a problem in and of
that's
itself.
the problem in itself. And that's where the discernment comes in, is you should be able to accept anybody for theirs as long as it does not tell you how you dictate your life and it doesn't hurt anybody.
And there was a example I wanted to share earlier in the church that we go to. It's a non-denominational. They had a message a while ago. I'd have to see if I can find a video on it, but it basically lumped faith into 3 buckets, and it talked, basically how they believe is, they're here for the relationship with God and facilitating that. This is our bucket. And then bucket 2 is the denominations that are out there. And there's all these denominations and the rules and the regulations. And then bucket 3 is the extreme aspect of it, what we call religion, and it was a really good message around it. Awesome. from a church pastor. And I thought that was really interesting, because it's true. Like there's varying levels of it. And again, don't be afraid to question. Don't be afraid to push back. Seek your truth. Seek your true freedom, and you'll find it.
Yeah, and do it in love and kindness, and you cannot go wrong.
Yeah. Thanks for listening.
Right there. Thank you.